All right, let's call to order the special meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have roll call, please?
Council members Asadrian,
Here.
Rahman,
Here.
Divine, Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Kasakian.
Here. And may we have your report?
The agenda for Tuesday, February 14, 2023 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on February 8th, 2023 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
All right, can you please read the first item into the record?
The first item is community development regarding dispense with public bidding for maintenance and repairs of the historic neon marquee at the Alex Theater. A resolution dispensing with the competitive bidding procedures required by Glendale Charter, Article 6, Section 9, and authorizing the purchasing administrator to solicit bids and execute a contract for specialized maintenance and repairs of the historic neon marquee at the Alex Theater.
Okay. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Kasakian, member City Council, this item as it was read into the record is fairly self-explanatory, but I'm going to turn it over to Tom Arsad, our Principal Administrative Officer, to provide some details for you in your decision to move forward with a resolution to dispense with competitive bidding. Arsad?
Thank you. Mayor Kasakian, members of council, as Mr. Galanian mentioned, this is a pretty straightforward. This is a contract for our historic Alex Theater. When we negotiated our contract with SAS in entertainment for the management of the theater in June 2022, one of the things we shifted over was the responsibility of the building's infrastructure and systems to the city of Glendale, and the historic neon marquee is one of our responsibilities. As Mr. Galanian mentioned, this would be to authorize the purchasing administrator to solicit bids. We would not be dispensing with bidding altogether. Staff would develop specs with the manager of the theater, make sure it met their needs and the needs of the marquee, and then we would go out to bid. The purchasing manager would collect the bids, and then we'd offer to the lowest bidder, the lowest qualified bidder. This process offers a little more flexibility because of the specialized nature of the marquee itself. We need someone who is qualified to be able to complete the work, both in the time that we need it done and also in the quality that we expect for the theater. So this just adds a little bit of flexibility. When we had originally presented the 10-year plan for the Alex Theater to the council, one of the things was to convert the neon part of the marquee to LED. After further consultation with other theaters who have actually made that change, we decided that both the time and the financial contribution and the aesthetic of changing to LED would not meet our standards at this time. So we are therefore pursuing a contract for the maintenance of the marquee, of the neon marquee instead. So that concludes my presentation, but I am available for questions.
All right. Who among my colleagues? Go ahead, Councilmember Najarian.
I'm glad you addressed that. The spire at the LA Coliseum used to be neon. You know, I think it's just to the east of the 110 freeway. And they, in their wisdom, changed it to, I think it's LED. So I know the spire is different than the marquee. I know we've had some, it's difficult to maintain the spire. Those tubes are always blowing out and doing other things. So did you look at the conversion of the spire to LED also?
Yes, we were looking more specifically at the ball at the very top, which is the most difficult to access. But yes, the spire itself is also difficult to access. Technology improves every day. We anticipate in the future this may be something that we could look at. I know that like inside the panels of the spire, parts of that has been changed to LED, but the tubes themselves are still neon. A lot of theaters have made the conversion and are actually converting back to neon, so maybe LA Coliseum will as well. This may be something that we will eventually get to, but the aesthetic is just not perfect quite yet.
Thank you.
All right.
So for this,
Councilmember Brotman.
Thank you. For this work, we're talking about the spire and the ball. So that's what we mean by the marquee structure is the whole thing.
The marquee, the
The marquee, the spire,
at the
and
very
the
top.
ball. Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't really have any questions.
Okay.
I'll move the item if there's no other.
Councilmember Asatryan?
What are some of the qualifications you're going to be including? And who's going to be assisting your office or the city manager in getting the experts?
SAS Entertainment has some team members that have been with Alex for a very long time and are familiar with the marquee and the intricacies. I know that the ball is not in great shape, so we'll definitely be asking for their assistance in developing the scope of work for the request of qualifications, and then we'll be working with the purchasing manager and finance.
Okay. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right, and given that this has come before council before and the neon goes out, and because it's an older building, it's an older technology, as was mentioned by my colleague about the Coliseum replacing their neon with LED, are you looking into, or did you address the issue of how after it's repaired, there will be ongoing maintenance costs associated? Is that included in what we're looking to approve?
Yes, it would be a 5-year, $350,000 contract. By doing it multi-year, we have the flexibility to put more funds into 1 year or less in others if there isn't as much repair work. But this would be something that we'd expect a vendor to come out monthly or quarterly to do all the repairs that are necessary. The neon does go out frequently, and so it would need ongoing maintenance.
And I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sure you're not a neon, maybe you are a neon expert, I don't know, Ms. Saad. But what are the reasons for the outages? What has caused it to go out? I mean, there are some neon signs, I guess, that can last for a long time. Feels like the Alex Spire is one that has always had issues and problems for as far back as I can remember. Do you know the answer to that, or has anyone given us an answer?
I don't know a specific answer. I know that the neon itself is very fickle and does need constant maintenance. The bulbs do go out. I know that with the ball at the top, that is something very difficult to reach all the connections properly, and so that has been an ongoing issue. But the neon itself is fickle, but I think with a regular maintenance contract, we would be able to better maintain it.
Mr. Mayor, part of the reason could also be the age of the system itself that feeds the neon bulbs.
Well, and that is part of what I'm trying to understand, because if we spend money repairing something that is, it's like replacing the tires on an old jalopy, right? If the mechanism itself is old and weathered and has kind of outlived its usefulness, not that I'm suggesting to get rid of the Spire, I know it's iconic, but then, you know, why are we investing in the neon repairs if there's other underlying issues, I guess is my concern. I'm sure better informed individuals than I are looking into this. I'm fine with allocating money because it grates on me every time I'm driving down or up Brand and I see the spire with its little splotches of darkness on the semi-lit spire. But I hope that we can take that into consideration. I was also told from folks that, you know, the gases for neon lights are harder to come by now because of the war in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. So I'm hoping that when we get this done, we also start thinking about the longer term maintenance for the spire. With that, there was a motion. I believe it was Councilmember Najarian.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Asatryan. Let's have a roll call for the vote.
Council members Asatryan,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine, Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. Next item.
Next item is city attorney regarding termination of local COVID-19 emergency. A resolution terminating local state of emergency pertaining to COVID-19 effective February 28th, 2023.
No confetti, no fanfare. This is it. This is how you bring it up.
This is how it goes out in flames.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor, the item before you is to declare the local state of emergency the end of the local state of emergency. As you know, the governor declared in October that there would be an end of the statewide emergency on February 28th. So we're recommending to likewise do the same here in Glendale. Would note also other cities in our area, Los Angeles, Santa Monica, have also already declared the end of the emergency. So that's our recommendation before you. And the only other thing that we noted in the report, the effect of this, in addition to what's noted in the report, is that the cap on delivery fees and other fees that were imposed on third-party delivery services was tied to a local state of emergency. So when this local state of emergency is declared over on February 28th, then that cap will end as well.
Okay. Now, go ahead, Councilmember Najarian, did you have a comment?
Well, I had a question, but I didn't want to.
No, I was just going to say that if we vote for this and we end this emergency, which I hope we will, that's not a sign or a nod for folks to start licking their fingers after opening every doorknob or, stopping to wash their hands. We're ending the state of emergency, but we're hoping that people will still maintain proper hygiene and remain healthy. Go ahead, Councilmember Najarian.
So what that does do, however, is it takes the power away from our city manager, who was the emergency services director, from making decisions as like masks and
Correct.
and closures, and we did all sorts of things back then.
Correct. We had different rules for different circumstances, but that's correct. That authority that was vested in the city manager as the emergency services director, subject to the council's ratification as the emergency services body, will cease to exist.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Emergency Services Director?
Perfectly fine.
You're getting paid extra for that,
Oh, yes.
that role?
Oh, yeah. You can take it away now.
Careful how you answer that. Someone may actually take that and run with it. So he was, okay.
I have some questions.
Councilmember Asatryan.
The cap fee, we as a council had directed staff to go and speak to both the companies and restaurants. How is this going to impact that item coming back along with, the al fresco? I know we have a suspension pending right now for enforcement. Those items are not going to be impacted by the decision we make today, or how's that going to move forward?
Yeah, Councilman Satrian. So with respect to al fresco, that as you note, it is under suspension, and I know CDD staff is bringing a report back to you. I can't remember when, but shortly to address that. With respect to the delivery fees, the third-party delivery companies and the delivery fees that will cease to exist, if council wants a report, we can bring back a subsequent report on whether if council wants to look at extending that. But that would have to be the council direction. CDD staff is here, can answer any questions you may have about the outreach that was conducted. Just so you know, we had that discussion, I think sometime in August, and you had directed us, the council had directed us to do that outreach. We were in the process of doing that, and I think it was near completion when the governor announced that he was going to be declaring the end of the emergency. So we thought we would just bring that back to you, and that would address that issue. But staff can answer any questions you have about the outreach if you would like.
I'd like a report on that. Because I just thought that item was going to come back separate because we had asked for it, so.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Shua Vang, Deputy Director of Economic Development. So I'm very pleased to share that Economic Development has deployed a number of outreach efforts to local Glendale restaurants to amplify awareness of the ordinance, as well as to ascertain feedback and also obtain overall sentiment. I do have some stats here that I'm happy to share with all of you, but before I dig into that a little bit deeper, I do want to highlight the various avenues that, in terms of getting the word out, right? So not just your traditional social media, but we did e-newsletter. We had over 9,000 recipients as part of that. We conducted surveys. We built a web page, landing page, allocated specifically to sharing information about the ordinance. We mailed out over 700 postcard mailers. We also conducted in-person and telephone outreach efforts throughout the city, including Kenneth Village, Adams Square, and a stretch of West Glen Oaks. We also leveraged partnerships with the local chambers of commerce, and including Glendale, Montrose Chamber. That included over 3,000 recipients. that received this information. And certainly, we did partner with our local business improvement districts, so with the Greater Downtown Glendale Association, Montrose Shopping Park Association, as well as Kenneth Village. We also partner with Glendale Water and Power and sent out over 330 mailers to restaurants, and that includes full-service restaurants as well as cafes. So those are, in terms of the channels that we utilize in terms of, again, getting the word out. Survey results, for example, over 89% are utilizing the third-party food delivery platform. The average percentage in terms of the delivery and processing fees was about 22%. The percentage that restaurants paid for the additional services, which includes whether it's advertising, consulting, credit card processing, all these sort of opted-in services, ranged anywhere from 2% to 45%. So it's a vast disparity depending on which restaurant that you speak to. 84% responded that the fee cap certainly helps their business. We also received over 89% that they were in favor of the city keeping the current fee cap in place. Most are in favor in keeping the ordinance and really share additional impacts as far as if we were to lift the ordinance, they shed some light in terms of how this will impact their profit margins. They also said this will necessitate the need to significantly increase prices on menu options in order to cover and recoup some of the costs. They also indicated that if fees continue to rise, they will be unable to survive in this climate. I also wanted to share some information as far as other stakeholder outreach. We did receive a number of statements from a variety of entities, joint statements from the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, National Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, U.S. Black Chamber, U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. They are in opposition of price controls. They actually indicated that in reality, these policies certainly impact small business owners. They mentioned that price controls limit what small businesses can do in terms of marketing and promoting their businesses and engaging with returning patrons and things of that nature. They mentioned that these commission fees that are being charged actually covers other important costs in terms of application maintenance. They mentioned the development and other services such as consumer safety protections, such as background checks and insurance for their delivery drivers, customer support services, credit card processing fees, and marketing promotions. And certainly I do want to also mention that we connected with the California Restaurant Association. They are the largest nonprofit state restaurant association here in the nation, and the voice, quite frankly, for the California food service industry. And they were actually neutral in terms of price control. They didn't necessarily have a position. And so that's the feedback that we were able to get given the short time that we had in terms of obtaining the feedback that's necessary to share with you all today.
We can always come back and revisit this as a separate issue, disassociated from the emergency, correct?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
I think the one last question I have is the outreach that was done, was it done in multiple languages or was it just in English?
Actually, Councilmember Satrian, we conducted in English specifically, but we did go in person and speak with many businesses along Brand and throughout, and it wasn't conducted in other languages, given the short turnaround time.
Right, I understand. I know that the city has a contract with the translation services that we use. I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that if a certain percentage of a population in a city speaks a certain language as their first language, then we are also required to have these things be translated. And so how do we get to a place where, even if it's short turnaround time, that we utilize the services for translations that we have when we are doing outreach? I think it's a question that I raise, time and again. And so I want to see how we can get to that place where, it becomes second nature to us that anytime we're putting something out, even, I'll give you an example. We're having an event for looking at the different electric landscaper event that we're having,
Yes.
in a couple of weeks,
Electrical,
right?
yeah.
So, I looked at the flyer and I'm thinking, like, why isn't there one in Spanish and why isn't there one in Armenian? And, especially thinking about like our immigrant communities that would really benefit from this. But I'm hoping that we get to a place that anytime we are putting together event flyers, outreach flyers and whatnot, it's second nature to our culture here to also, have the translated materials available.
Yeah, Mayor Kasakian, member City Council, Councilmember Satrian, staff is actually working on a strategy that would include what triggers translation, and we want to be consistent across the city organization so that it's not one-offs. And we will come up with, like I said, we're in the process of coming up with a citywide strategy that will address that concern.
And I think the last thing I'd add to that, especially programs that the county is also utilizing, they also do the translation automatically because they have the same system. And I remember this during COVID when I wasn't on the council. I was taking like the materials that the city was putting together and then translating them into different languages and posting them on my social media platforms. But then I would find out that the county had done the same exact thing already, but the city and the county weren't really talking to each other. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration there on these fronts. And I appreciate all the outreach. I just wanted to get the details. Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, can we have a motion for the resolution terminating local state of emergency?
I'll move the item.
Second.
All right, may we have the roll call for the vote?
Council members Asatryan,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine, Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Kasakian.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. There's no other business on this special public meeting agenda. Let's entertain a motion to adjourn. Who would like to make the motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Okay, let's have a roll call for the city council meeting.
Council members Asatryan,
Here.
Brotman,
Here.
Divine, Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Kasakian.
Here. And can you please read the closed session items into the record?
Yes, closed session item A, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Leeper versus City of Glendale, LASC case number BC 708092. B, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Muradian versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 21STCV 2258. Closed session item C, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Glen Oaks Canyon Homeowners Association versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 22STCP00114. Closed session item D, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Nadimian versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 19STCV29013.
All right, do we anticipate reporting out on any of these items?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, we will adjourn to closed session.